Well, heavy fighting has been reported in eastern DRC just a day after the killing of the M23 official military spokesperson Willy Ngoma. In fact, the M23 has now been announced to take over new territories in eastern DRC, and there has been a thread that has been released by the M23 via their official spokesperson Lawrence Kanyuka. This video, I'm going to tell you about that statement that has been released by Lawrence Kanyuka, as well as I'm going to tell you the territories that have now been taken over by the M23 in just the past few hours, as well as in this video I'm going to tell you about the events that unfolded just after that drone attack against the residence that Willy Ngoma was in Rubaya. What exactly happened that time, how many people lost their lives, and what measures have the M23 taken since that fatal strike by the FARDC in the Wazalendo against the M23 in eastern DRC. Well, this is Bonafide. If you haven't subscribed, kindly subscribe and hit the notification button so that when I release something new on eastern DRC, you get notified as soon as possible. Retaliatory attacks are underway by the AFC M23 just a day after their military spokesperson Willy Ngoma was killed by an airstrike which the Wazalendo have gone out and say that they claim responsibility about. In fact, it has been announced that the M23 has now taken over localities of Luk, Katoboto, and Kasenyi, and that fighting still is continuing in Kazinga. These are villages that had briefly been recovered by the Wazalendo that have now been taken over by the AFC M23 as fierce and heavy fighting is continuing in different fronts of eastern DRC. The M23, of course, is taking out on the coalition of the FARDC and the Wazalendo after that fatal strike against their military spokesperson Willy Ngoma. And of course, at the same time, the FARDC is also continuing to carry out drone attacks against the M23 positions in eastern DRC. It has been reported that in the past few hours, the FARDC have been carrying out drone attacks against Rugezi, located in the highlands of Minembwe in South Kivu, East DRC. And as the events have been unfolding in eastern DRC, the deteriorating situation in eastern DRC have led both of these forces to continue fighting fiercely on the fronts both in North and South Kivu. A statement has been released by Lawrence Kanyuka, the official spokesperson of the AFC M23, that read that the Congolese people and the international community are invited to take note with the utmost attention of the repeated violations of the ceasefire perpetrated by the Kinshasa regime, which gravely undermines the efforts at de-escalation and impose a dynamic of total war against the AFC M23. The latter, for its part, remains resolutely committed to the strict observance of the ceasefire as well as the obligations arising from the Doha Agreement. The world is witness to this today. That has been the statement that was released by Lawrence Kanyuka, the official spokesperson of the AFC M23, noting that there have been some violation of the ceasefire by the FARDC and their coalition of Wazalendo. And of course, it is important to know that at this point, the FARDC will also say the same thing, that it is the M23 that has been violating the ceasefire in eastern DRC. Both of these parties have been fighting fearlessly. In the past 1 week alone, we have seen multiple drone attacks from the FARDC. We have seen ground attacks from the M23 against the position of the Wazalendo and the FARDC in eastern DRC. The use of drones has changed the warfare in eastern DRC. The entire conflict has completely changed. And in fact, the involvement of the United States in the affairs of the eastern DRC have also tipped the scales. And the involvement of the mercenaries in assisting the FARDC and the Wazalendo in fighting, specifically on the use of modern drone technology, has assisted the coalition of the FARDC and the Wazalendo in fighting against the M23 in eastern DRC. Because right now we're not talking just about the terrain in eastern DRC. We're not talking about the logistical advantage that Goma or Bukavu will offer to the fight in eastern DRC. We're talking about who was the latest technology in terms of drone warfare in eastern DRC. And as I said in a previous video, Eric Prince's Blackwater mercenaries have greatly assisted the coalition of the FARDC and the Wazalendo, first in fighting the M23 from Uvira, and right now, many are alluding that this drone technology that is being used by the FARDC and the Wazalendo has that assistance from Eric Prince's men that has caused all the difference in eastern DRC. But what exactly happened just a day ago when Willy Ngoma lost his life from this drone attack in Rubaya? Because it is reported that Rubaya is a strategic mining hub that is controlled by the M23 and that produces around 15% of the world's supply of coltan. and it was recently added to a short list of mining assets being offered by the Congolese government to the United States under a minerals cooperation framework. So this was a very important mining site that was being controlled by the M23. Of course, 15% of the global supply is nothing small. That meant that the United States or the DRC government really wanted this mining site to be in their control so that they can offer the United States in the bilateral deal that they signed between the DRC and the United States to stop the conflict in Eastern DRC. So the M23 was controlling a very important and strategic mining site that was in need by not only the DRC government but also the United States. And as it was reported, 9 bodies were then transported from the site of the strike to Goma. According to a senior military official, at least 7 other bodies could not be retrieved because they were reduced to ashes. And in fact, many have also questioned the whereabouts of Sultani Makenga, the military commander of the FCM23. And according to sources, military commander Sultani Makenga was in the area shortly before the strike. And according to the spokesperson of the Wazalendo, Makenga fled to a nearby church. That means that according to this new information, Sultani Makenga, the military commander of the FCM23, was not injured by that drone attack against the residents in Kasuku Farm, where the military spokesperson Willing Goma lost his life, that the military commander was there just shortly before that airstrike happened in that particular locality. Well, I'll continue to keep you updated and informed of the latest of what will come out from Eastern DRC. Right now that the M23 has now taken retaliatory measures against the FARDC and the Wazalendo in Eastern DRC. Heavy fighting has been reported on different fronts, both in North and South Kivu, by the M23 against the FARDC and the Wazalendo. Keep it Bonafide. Well, if you value the Africa geopolitical analysis I do here on Bonafide, please consider supporting the channel. Producing independent and research-driven content takes time and resources, and YouTube revenue alone is not enough. Your support, whether by sharing, subscribing, or contributing, helps Bonafide remain consistent, independent, and analytical. Thank you for supporting independent African analysis.